We are here to discuss the issues. You may have an individual concern, but we are here to discuss the issues. And we have a hard time doing that in this part of the world. What did I mean by that? The road in front of your farm needs fixing. That's a concern. The issue is secondary roads program for agriculture in this country. If you frame it like that, if you frame it like an issue, we can deal with it. If you bring it as a concern, then we'll have to deal with you specifically. I think that's part of the problem we have in the region generally. People vent on their concerns, and sometimes they lose track of the issue. So that there's a concern in terms of what's happening on your farm, what happened to you, you couldn't get land, they thief your crops. The thing is, pre-deal last year is an issue. The cow they thief from you is your concern. And sometimes it's only your concern alone, because nobody else care. But the idea is that when we communicate to a wide audience, if we deviate from the issues and we start dealing with the concerns, people are either going to tune in or tune out. They're going to tune out if they don't share that concern. You know, if nobody never thief my pig, so me understand what this pre-deal last day thing you're talking about. Well, what do you mean pre-deal last day? It's how people thieving. Alright? When you bring it into a wider framework, then it becomes an issue that we can all tackle. And the same thing happens with food and nutrition. We all have our concerns about what passes for food, what passes for food security. And I think that it would be remiss of me if I didn't tell you this, that it's Diane's fault. Diane, in her wisdom, contracted me to look at food and nutrition policies in the region, and then had the misfortune to take me down to the CARICOM Secretariat and ask me to present it. And because I run my own company, I'm here looking for none of them for a bread. I said what I felt. I said what I wrote. I said that what passes for food security in this part of the world is a farce. One of the things that came out, and I'm calling the country because I said it then, one of the things that came out of Jamaica under their food security program was to increase horticulture, floriculture. And your knee-jerk reaction to that would be, oh man, this is that, we can't eat flowers. But the argument was that they're going to raise incomes at the family level, which makes a lot of sense, don't get me wrong. But when you put that in the context of a food security program, when you said the emphasis is on, remember this is 2008, 2009, when we are talking about having the money is not enough. Because Trinidad and Tobago's food policy is about months of cover. We proudly state that we have 11 months cover in the central bank. That means we have the monthly food bill 11 times. That's what it means. And that is what food security meant for us before 2008. When we realized that there would be times when you'd have the money and can't buy the food, everybody started to, there were, as Julius said, plans afoot. The minister reiterated that, we're going to start growing more food, etc., etc. And when the prices, they didn't plummet, but they just sort of level off and went to sane levels, everybody went back to doing what they were doing before. So that our responsibility as professionals in whatever sphere of activity, whether you're a professional farmer, whether you're a scientist or researcher, whatever, is to connect with the issues. When you come and you talk about your concerns, you're on your own. Either people are going to tune in or tune out because they don't see how that is going to impact them. If you deal with the issues and you frame it as an issue, then it becomes something even more significant. So that when I talk about food and nutrition and or nutrition, the school feeding people could take something out of what I'm saying. The organic farmers like Lennox and the people who are strict health nuts, health nuts.
Both.
Yeah, nuts and vegetables. Right. The strict health nuts and health vegetables. They relate to what you're saying because I'm not coming with my own concern. I have a concern about fish. I can only tell people that in the back of the bus and so, but I wouldn't come in a public forum and say that. You follow? But that's a concern. My concern with fish is that I don't eat fish. Right?
Why?
And everybody I know who has ever gotten sick in the Caribbean was off of fish. Because we have this feeling that this thing is so healthy. So we don't cook it properly. We go during the May months and so when the Orinoco, all that mercury and thing comes down, people get sick. But I'm a pork eater. I'm a symbol of pork eating in Trinidad and Tobago.
As a matter of fact, you look like a pig.
I look like a pig, yeah, exactly. The only part of the pig we don't eat in Trinidad is the squeal.
When the pig cries.
The squeal.
We
We eat everything. Ears, head, snout, what have you, trotters, everything. Right? Now, if I want to stand up here to tell you about that, I mean, you're supposed to tune out because that is my own little concern. I mean, let me worry about that. If the issue is nutrition and food safety, and I frame it like that, and I use an example of food safety to talk about, you know, fish or the fact that you never undercook pork, etc., then you will tolerate me. Because I frame this as an issue. When I come in my own little personal concern, I shouldn't hold the attention of 20-something people just for that. You follow? And I think that's part of our difficulty in this sector, that we approach the policymakers with our concerns. Each farmer wants to tell you about what's happening on his farm and how the minister should fix it. If you frame it as an issue, if a secondary road program is the issue, and that comes back to the policy thing. Because in this part of the world, we are still project driven. If World Bank, ICA, my good friends in ICA, or Cardi, or somebody negotiate something, and they have a project now to do road covers, whether there was a policy in place in Dominica or not for protected agriculture, once you bring the money and come, we used to do it. You follow? We will find a place to put road covers. Even if you had to put road covers over banana, we don't care. But if you say you're going to bring money for that, we're going to do it. So that we keep mixing up these concerns with the issues, and we have no understanding what policy is. And I think the last thing that should be said from me on a policy meeting like this is that we are supposed to be working from the other direction. There should be an overarching policy which says our direction, our intent. Then we have programs and then projects. Not get a project, try to see which program you can fit it into, and then say it's part of your policy. And I think that's part of the difficulty. And that's what we spent the first 2 days in Dominica as part of Cardi climate change workshop, working on policy briefs, putting together the issues in water scarcity so that the politicians, the policy makers will have more information, come up with more informed policy from which programs and projects can flow in that direction, as opposed to what pertains now in a large number of cases where they scramble some money for some particular project and then have to find a program to put it into and then say that was the policy, because there's never a policy vacuum. That's the last point I want to make. There's always a policy. It may not be written, but there's always a policy. And the policy might very well be that we will have a role in policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we have some interventions here now?
Steve.
Steve, why you left the microphone? You've got...
That's my policy.
Okay. Anyway? Sergio?
No.
I conclude. That's my intervention.
Oh,
I conclude.
you agree with all that he said?
How can you follow this?
Is it that Steve is such a good communicator, or you people
People are tired.
thinking,
People are
they're
tired.
thinking of the
Of course,
beach?
people are taking us to friends.
Well, Steve, thank you very much, and I want to thank everyone else for their participation here today, this afternoon. I think we've covered quite a lot, and I just want to wrap things up, not wrap up the session, but just wrap up what we've been, our discussions here by reminding us that communication is, like I said earlier, a cluster of dots in the whole heavenly host of dots that we need to connect. And in that cluster, we have to consider communicating to the farmers, old and young, and farmers to be. We have to consider communicating to the technicians, the nutritionists, the cooks, the chefs, and making sure that we understand communication is never complete until the message is understood and interpreted correctly. If the message is not understood and interpreted correctly, we have had no communication. I'd like to submit to us this afternoon, as I'm about to take my seat, that the biggest dot in this whole sphere of connecting the dots as it relates to food and nutrition security, the biggest dot I'm submitting to you today, confidently, is mindset. We are the biggest dot. And if we don't start with the connection, there will be no connection. All the dots will just be left unconnected. We had the opportunity for the past 4 days to gather information that would assist in changing our mindset to agriculture and all the other dots that surround agriculture. The onus is now on us to connect the dots. Thank you.